Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People's Story. I founded my creative tech agency 12 years ago from literally nothing but a laptop and determination. What started as a one-person operation in my garage has grown into a company with over 500 employees across 8 locations. Despite our success, I've always preferred staying under the radar. No flashy cars, no mansion, and definitely no power trips. That's just not me. One of my management philosophies has always been to visit our different branches unannounced. I don't believe in those staged executive visits where everyone puts on a show. I want to see how things really operate when people don't think the boss is watching. My executive team thinks I'm a bit eccentric for doing this, but these visits have helped me keep our company culture authentic as we've grown. I'm naturally soft-spoken, which surprises people who expect tech founders to be loud, commanding personalities. The only time I really get animated is when discussing new projects or innovations that excite me. My passion takes over and, according to my wife, my volume control goes out the window. About 6 months ago, I implemented a company-wide casual dress code. Suits and formal business attire were becoming a barrier to creativity, and employee surveys showed people wanted more comfort and self-expression. Some of our older branch managers were hesitant, but the policy had been a massive success overall, boosting both morale and productivity. The incident happened at our newest branch, which had opened about 3 months prior. I hadn't yet met the branch manager in person, as she'd been hired through our regional director while I was overseas finalizing an acquisition. According to her resume, she had impressive credentials from larger corporations, and our director felt her structured approach would help establish the new location. That Tuesday, I decided to drop by wearing my usual jeans and a company t-shirt from our last team building event. I had arranged to meet my colleague there for lunch as he was working on a project with that team and could give me his unfiltered thoughts on how things were going. When I arrived, I immediately noticed a few operational issues. The open workspace felt strangely quiet compared to our other locations. Employees seemed tense, and the collaborative spaces we'd designed were mostly empty. Our company thrives on communication and spontaneous collaboration, so seeing everyone siloed at their desks threw up immediate red flags. My colleague and I settled into one of the collaboration pods, which was designed specifically for informal meetings. We were discussing an exciting new AI integration project, and I'll admit I got pretty animated. My volume probably increased, but we were in a space literally designed for such discussions, separated from the main work areas by sound dampening panels. We'd been talking for maybe 15 minutes when a woman in a perfectly pressed pantsuit approached our table. Her face was set in what I can only describe as a practiced expression of controlled displeasure. "Excuse me," she said in a tone that clearly communicated she wasn't actually asking to be excused. "This is a professional workplace, not a coffee shop. You need to lower your voices immediately or take your meeting elsewhere." I was caught off guard by her approach, but kept my cool. "I apologize if we were disruptive. We're just discussing a project for the company." She looked me up and down, taking in my casual attire with obvious disapproval. "And which department are you with?" "I don't recognize either of you," my colleague intervened. "We're from headquarters. I've been working with the design team here this week." Her eyebrows shot up. "Headquarters? In that attire? I find that hard to believe." I was personally hired by the regional director, and she assured me this company maintains professional standards. She emphasized the word professional while giving my jeans another disapproving glance. "The company actually changed its dress code policy a few months ago," I explained calmly, "and these pods are specifically designed for collaborative discussions." "Well, I run this branch, and I've implemented standards that allow our important people to work without disruption. The owner would never tolerate such casual disregard for professionalism," she stated firmly. "The dress code change was optional for branches to adopt, and I've chosen not to implement it here." That was completely false. The policy wasn't optional, and no branch manager had the authority to override company-wide directives. But before I could clarify, she continued. "Now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this area. We have important clients visiting this afternoon, and I won't have them thinking we run some kind of startup playground." My colleague shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should clarify who—" "I don't need clarification," she interrupted. "If you're really from headquarters, you can call your supervisor and they can contact me through proper channels. For now, I need you to lower your voices or leave. This is your final warning." The interaction was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. Several employees were watching now, and I didn't want to create a scene. I reached for my bag to get my company ID. "Look, there seems to be a misunderstanding. Let me just show you." "No, the misunderstanding is yours," she snapped, her voice rising. I've asked you politely to respect our workplace and you're continuing to argue. I'm going to call security if you don't leave immediately. My colleague tried again. You really don't understand who you're talking to. That was apparently the wrong thing to say. Her face flushed with anger and she reached into her purse. Are you threatening me? I will not be intimidated in my own branch. To my absolute shock, she pulled out a small canister of pepper spray. Several employees gasped and someone called out, "Wait, don't! I'm giving you 5 seconds to pack up and leave before I call security," she said, holding the pepper spray at her side. "And if you make any threatening moves, I am prepared to defend myself." I stood slowly, hands visible. "There's no need for that. I'm just going to show you my ID, which will clear this up immediately." As I reached toward my pocket, she apparently interpreted this as a threat. Before I could even touch my ID, she raised the pepper spray and discharged it directly at my face. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. It felt like my eyes and skin were literally on fire. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair, while my colleague shouted something I couldn't make out through my own coughing and gasping. Several employees rushed over. Someone guided me to a sink while another person retrieved the first aid kit. Through the burning and tears, I heard confused voices. "That's him! That's literally the founder! Oh my God, did she just pepper spray our CEO? Someone call HR immediately!" As my eyes were being flushed with water, I heard the branch manager's voice switch from authoritative to uncertain. "What are you all talking about?" This person was being disruptive and threatening. My colleague, who had thankfully avoided the spray, responded with remarkable restraint. "This is the founder and CEO of the entire company. The person you just assaulted built this company from nothing." There was a moment of complete silence before someone handed me a towel. Once I could partially see again, though my eyes were still red and swollen, I turned toward the manager. Her face had drained of all color, and she was staring at me with an expression of dawning horror. I took out my phone with my company founder authentication and called our head of HR, putting it on speaker. After explaining the situation as calmly as I could, I handed the phone to my colleague to fill in details while I recovered. The branch manager started stammering apologies, but I held up my hand. My eyes were still burning intensely, but I managed to look directly at her. "We'll discuss this tomorrow at headquarters, 10 a.m. Bring all your documentation about branch policies you've implemented." Rather than fire her on the spot, which everyone clearly expected, I wanted to understand how we'd reached this point. Had our hiring process failed? Was our company culture not being effectively communicated? Or was this simply someone drunk on a small amount of power? Whatever the case, there was a valuable lesson here for the entire organization. After receiving proper medical attention and confirming no serious damage had been done, I spent the rest of the day talking with employees at that branch. The picture that emerged was troubling. The manager had systematically dismantled many of our core company values in just 3 months, implementing rigid hierarchies, discouraging collaboration, and creating an atmosphere of fear rather than innovation. The next morning, I met with our HR director and legal counsel before the manager arrived. While they both felt termination was justified given the physical assault, I proposed an alternative approach. When the manager arrived, she looked like she hadn't slept. She'd clearly been crying and came prepared with a resignation letter. Instead of accepting it immediately, I asked her to sit down. "Before we discuss your resignation, I want to understand something," I said. "When you were hired, you were given our company culture document, correct?" She nodded stiffly. "And you were briefed on our management philosophy, our flat organizational structure, and our collaborative approach?" "Yes, but—" she hesitated. "My previous employers always said those things too, but what they really wanted was results and discipline. I thought all that culture stuff was just for show." That comment revealed everything. She'd been operating under assumptions from toxic workplaces, unable to believe that our values were genuine. "The pepper spray incident was inexcusable and legally actionable," I told her frankly. "But I'm more concerned about the culture you've created in that branch in just 3 months. We spent the next hour reviewing employee feedback and the changes she'd made against explicit company policy. To her credit, she didn't make excuses, but seemed genuinely shocked at how her actions were perceived. Instead of accepting her resignation, I proposed a different path forward. "Here's what I'm offering instead of termination," I explained. 1 month working in our customer service department to understand our product and users, complete our conflict resolution training program, develop and implement a branch-wide initiative focused on workplace respect and collaboration, and personally apologize to everyone who witnessed yesterday's incident. She stared at me in disbelief. "You're not firing me? After I pepper sprayed you?" Don't mistake this for leniency, I clarified. This is your one chance, with clear expectations and metrics for improvement. I believe firing you would be easier but less impactful than helping you transform your approach to leadership. After discussing the legal implications with our counsel, she signed an agreement accepting these terms and acknowledging that any further incidents would result in immediate termination. The following weeks weren't easy. Her time in customer service was humbling, as she later admitted. The conflict resolution training forced her to confront her assumptions about power and authority. The branch-wide respect initiative, which I insisted she develop with input from all levels of employees, slowly began repairing the damage. 6 months later, I returned to that branch for another unannounced visit. The transformation was remarkable. The collaboration pods were in use, people were engaged in animated discussions, and the atmosphere felt energized rather than tense. Their productivity metrics, which had been declining, were now among the highest in the company. The manager approached me, no longer in a formal suit but wearing company casual attire. She didn't flinch or apologize for the meeting she was interrupting, but instead asked if she could join the discussion about our new project. Later, as I was leaving, she asked for a moment in private. "I want to thank you," she said, maintaining steady eye contact. "Not for keeping me on, but for showing me what authentic leadership looks like. I would have learned nothing from being fired except to be bitter. This was harder, but I'm a better manager and person for it." I nodded. Sometimes the best response to entitled behavior isn't to destroy, but to transform. I'm glad you were open to that transformation. What could have been just another story about a power-tripping manager getting her comeuppance became something more valuable. Our company culture grew stronger, not despite this challenge, but because of how we responded to it. The incident has become something of a legend in company lore, though we've worked to ensure it's seen as a story about redemption and growth rather than just a shocking anecdote about the time the CEO got pepper sprayed. And more importantly, it reinforced my belief that our most important company value isn't innovation or creativity, but our commitment to treating people with dignity, even when they temporarily forget to do the same. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Okay, so just a little bit of info before I get into the story. Also, sorry this might get a little long, but I hope it's worth it. I, 22 male, work construction and run a few crews, and I'm a foreman because I've been working in this field since I started working summers when I was 14. That's legal in my state. With this being said, I have a lot of experience and get paid really well. For my job, I need a truck that can pull a lot of trailers and also get into a lot of sketchy job sites, especially in the winter, so I drive a new lifted pickup, F350. Anyways, let's get into it. So about 4 months ago now, I got off work one day and just really didn't feel like making dinner, so I decided to go get myself the trusty Big Mac at McDonald's. Well, after I got my order, I was going to pull out into the parking lot to drive home, and I was looking hard over to my left to see how busy the road was before I got over there. Well, I wasn't paying great attention to what was happening in front of me, and as I was creeping forward, someone who was in front of me was stopped and not paying attention either. I ended up barely hitting his mirror and scraping his door with my front end. I immediately reversed and hopped out. I made sure the guy was okay and apologized, knowing it was my fault, and I asked him if he wanted to call the cops. "Let's call him Brent." Brent says, "Nah, bro, we are all good. If you just get me your insurance info, I think we can get this taken care of." I was fine with that, as there was no damage done to my truck, and it's not required to call the cops for an accident if it occurs in a private parking lot. This is relevant later. We exchange info, and he seems pretty cool, so I tell him to go get the damage bid, and he'll just pay in cash, so my insurance rates don't go up as long as he's okay with it. He says that's fine, and we both just leave, and I feel like a moron, but all in all, Brent seems like a cool dude, and I just hope we can get it sorted out smoothly. About a month passes by, and I haven't heard anything from Brent or the shop I told him to go to. Honestly, I wasn't too stressed about this, because if he decided to not get it done, that's on him. Well, he calls me up one day at about noon, saying he can't remember my name and he wanted to tell the guys at the shop who sent him there because it seemed like we knew each other. I told him my name and the guys at the shop gave him a deal. Pretty sure they say this to everyone, LOL. He sends me the bid for damages and it comes out to $2,403. This was more than I imagined, but I said to get it done and ID take care of the bill afterward, and that was that. He hung up, said it was cool, and I went on with my day as usual. Another month goes by, and I don't hear anything until Brent calls me up while I'm at work again and says, "Hey, brother, I talked to the shop and they said they can't get me in for another 2 weeks or so, and they may end up charging me more if they find more damage." I say, "Okay, sounds good, just let me know, man. I hope it goes smooth for you, and I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He seems to take it good, and I'm really trying to just be a good person. He responds with, "Well, after talking to my wife, I'm okay if you just wanted to write a check for $2,500 and we can call it even." This seemed odd to me because why the hell wouldn't someone want their vehicle repairs all paid for? I say, "Okay, man, let's set a time and place to meet and I'll get you paid." He liked the idea and ended the call by telling me he would let me know. Yet another month passes by and I hear nothing again. At this point, I'm getting fed up and just want this situation to stop being over my head. He hits me up at 11 p.m. one night and asks if we can meet in town. I found this kind of disrespectful because I was nearly asleep and had to be at work at 5 a.m. the next day. Either way, I said that was fine and took my $2,500 cash and wrote up a quick contract saying this payment would be accepted as payment in full for the damages, and by accepting it, it would release me from any and all liability. This was a pretty fair contract, I believe, as it was the deal we had already made over the phone, just in writing. I get to the place we suggested as a meet-up spot, I give him the cash, and he signs the contract without hardly even reading it, and he didn't want the copy. This was a red flag to me, but I just assumed he really didn't care about it all that much, so I just send him the photo of the contract and go back home for some beauty sleep. As you can guess by now, another ducking month goes by with me just living life carefree and not a worry in the world about this stupid car accident. Well, I go to check my mail and I have a notice from this guy's lawyer that he is suing me for not paying after wrecking his car. This pissed me off, but I also knew I had plenty of text messages and a contract on my side. I immediately call Brent and he blocks my number. Luckily enough, my girlfriend works for a lawyer, so I get him updated and he says he'd love to help. He lets me know I saved my ass by writing that contract, as any contract worth over $500 is to be held up in any level court in my state. I immediately get to work on my revenge. I remember on the side of this guy's car he had a business logo and I took pictures of the damage, so I hop online and get to the BBB to look up who owns this company, thinking that surely he couldn't own the business because he is such an idiot. I was wrong. This guy owns the company, and I can see that he has about 12 one-star reviews all in dispute because of his shady business practices, telling people it will cost one thing and then charging them 4 times what he said it would. Sound familiar? Remember when he said the shop may charge more than the original $2,403? That's right, he was suing me for $10,000. 4 times what the shop told him it would cost. Unbelievable. He was trying his same sneaky crap on me. My lawyer takes note of this and we show up to court ready for war. This guy is sleazy. As we get there and all set up, he says, "You ready to give me more of daddy's money?" With a smirk. I guess just because I'm young and drive a nice truck and could afford $2,500. His lawyer gets up and starts trying to say BS from me hitting and running, and Brent barely got a picture of my license plate too. I tried bullying him into taking a deal for only $2,500 when the damage was clearly more than that. There were obvious holes in his story and he really didn't have much to say. Just imagine the smile on my face as my lawyer lays out the printouts of our text messages and the physical copy of the contract, which was signed by Brent. His lawyer was ghostly white and looked sick. After laying out all of the evidence, my lawyer pulled out a little hidden gem, the printouts of all the complaints we found on the BBB and how he was doing the same thing to me. That was the final nail in the coffin, as the judge said he had seen enough. He asked Brent for any final statements, and Brent said, "I don't even have the $2,500 anymore. Can I just get that then and we will be okay?" Literally admitting to the judge that he had received my money and his story was just a load of horse crap. I thought his lawyer was going to strangle him. It was beautiful. The judge ended up ruling in my favor and demanded him to pay my legal fees, as well as damages and lost wages because I had to miss work to be in court. The absolute sweetest part was that this particular day my crew was on a very high-wage job, and I was technically the one getting paid before I paid them out as subcontractors. This means I was to be paid $475 per hour. And this whole ordeal took about 5 hours. He ended up having to pay me almost $5,000. I don't think I've ever been so happy in my life. It was so long, I just really felt the need to share. Thank you to anyone who made it this far. The next one is a malicious compliances story. This story isn't about the U.S. military, but I will use U.S. Army terms. Some background. I spent most of my military service in a Communications Command and Control Center, CC for short, which isn't as glorious as it sounds. It was mostly emails and Excel. Our CC was relatively high in the command chain. We were more big picture, managing the operability of communication systems across the whole military. The ones actually doing the work in the CC are enlisted soldiers, but because the work was relatively important, the commander of the CC was always an officer. At the time of this story, I was an E3, enlisted soldier, 3rd rank. I had a lot of time and experience on the job. One day, we got a new commander, an O1, fresh out of officer school. She had a really crappy, "I'm an officer, you must respect me" attitude. I was more time than her in the Army, I was also older, and my work involved interacting with officers with much higher ranks than her, so I couldn't give a crap, but I tried playing nice. Our work at the CC had a pretty normal procedure. We'd get some report, say maintenance A starting, something like that would usually be filed away immediately because we knew about it ahead, and they usually didn't affect anything. A report like someone dug through a fiber optic cable and a whole post lost internet connection would usually lead to us making some phone calls trying to understand if there are backups, who could fix it and when, and lastly when we had all of the relevant info we would notify our commander. She didn't care about that procedure, she wanted to be involved and assert her control. One day she saw a report on one of our computers that we didn't notify her about yet, so she got really angry and said, "From now on, you are to notify me about every report." Big mistake. The CC worked 24/7, but there was only one commander, so if something really important came up, we would wake her up in the middle of the night, but most stuff was kept to the morning. Well, cue malicious compliance. That night, the night shift woke her up about 10 times, and they were being nice. The day after, she was visibly sleep-deprived. I was on the next night shift and called her for every report. Sometimes we'd get multiple a minute. She was basically doing the night shift with me. At around 5 a.m., she said, "Fine, you don't have to report everything. You know what's important and what's not." The next one is an entitled people story. I just saw a similar-ish post that reminded me of this unfortunate memory. This was a few years ago now, but it never fails to aggravate me. I used to work as a receptionist at a fairly busy medical clinic. It was the day before a major holiday, so the mood was jolly, and it was an uncharacteristically slow day in the office. We had a patient and his wife no show in the morning, no phone call, no reschedule, no nothing. Naturally, after about half an hour, their appointment is canceled. Things are running smoothly until we see a patient who was recently released from the hospital and is following up with us. They look extremely unwell. By this point, my spidey senses are tingling that something's about to go down. Mid-doctor's visit, the patient suddenly loses consciousness and begins coding, cardiac arrest. Everything is in literal chaos. The doctor and medical assistant are performing CPR while I'm on the phone frantically trying to get EMS out there ASAP. The spouse is crying and screaming, and patients are slowly trickling in to witness this all in plain sight. Naturally, most people were kind and concerned, giving us space to work, silently signing in their names and taking a seat. Of course, it's during all of this frenzy that entitled patient walks in. As I'm finishing up my emergency call, they begin tapping repeatedly on the glass. Entitled patient: "Hey, we're here for our appointment. I hope the wait isn't going to be long. Also, it's very rude that you were on the phone when we walked in." Me: "I apologize. As you can see, we're currently in the middle of an emergency. Also, your appointment was over 2 hours ago. It's already been canceled." Entitled patient: "Yeah, I know we're a little late, but can't you guys just fit us in somewhere? I mean, we're already here now. Why can't we just have that person who's dying on the floor's appointment? They're not going to be using it." Their actual words. Me: "What the duck? No, that's not how this works. Your appointment is canceled and you're going to have to reschedule for another day. We're currently dealing with a life or death emergency." Entitled patient: "Wow, this is such bull. Unbelievable. You guys could have squeezed us in this whole time. It would have taken like 5 minutes tops. The doctor could have seen us while the paramedics handled the other person. You all just wasted our time. We're never coming back to your office." And thank God, as long as I worked there, I never did see them again. Oh, and thankfully our patient survived and is doing great. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.